Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. On today's video, we're going to show you what we're doing here in Kelly's garden with her anti-deer, anti-dog fence. Dog hair. Well, come along. There's dog hair stuck to my hat. So for those of you unfamiliar with what we're doing in Kelly's garden here, we've expanded the garden. We came out this way from last year, went a little wider. So we just kind of opened up more room. And we've always just had woven wire or welded wire, just some things to deter the deer from jumping over and getting in. And we wanted to do things a little more permanent, hopefully have a little bit more appeal to them. So just doing some research, we decided we were going to work with cattle panels, some treated timbers, and do more of a symmetrical or actually something square layout, which is kind of tough to do on these West Virginia hills. But we're working on the last leg right now on making the turn on this backside. So let me show you what we've got. So the boys are working on putting our holes in for the last section of fence here. We're actually going to just stop at the front this year as we figure out what to do going further back, because the hillside drops off a little bit. Obviously it tapers down to a point. And I've got a plan to do some additional excavation back here into the hillside with some raised beds. So I don't want to put anything permanent in there if I'm going to get in as soon as it dries out to cut some more of the hillside out. So we're going to have this front end in place, and then that's where we'll stop. The dog's urinating right here on camera. Kelly and I will show you the details of what we've put in so far.
So just to give you a little tour of the fencing that we've been working on for the garden is we wanted something a little bit more permanent this year. Because we didn't have a definite of what we wanted our garden to look like in the past, so we've just made it temporary and have kind of adjusted it each year. So we wanted to give it some finishing touches and make it look nicer for the backyard. So we put in cattle panels here against the front, and we used these treated posts for the corner posts. And these cattle panels, we've got 2 full cattle panels along the front here that we have spray painted black just for the aesthetics. And our gate will go in the center here. And like Troy had said, for this year, we're just going to do the front and then these first 2 sections on either side. And as we define the back part of our garden, we'll decide what we're going to do as far as making that more permanent. But to give these cattle panels more stability, we routered these bottom pieces and then again these top pieces, and we're going to show you when we do the very last section how we did that, and put the cattle panels into those routered sections, and then use this middle post here as support so that it didn't sag or lean out at all. So you'll notice that the tops we've not done anything with that yet, and we're still debating on what we want to do. If we want to make this a little higher, and Troy had talked about maybe using some cables in here to go from one post to the other, just to give it some more height for deer. In case we need that, but we don't know at this point if we need that, so we're kind of just leaving that for now to see how much more fencing we need to add to it. So we wanted to incorporate some raised beds in the garden this year for the cats. No, not really, but for more perennials, but also for some of our herbs, lettuces, things like that. We're just kind of trying it out to see what works best where. So since we have this corner yet to finish with this raised bed here, and then we're going to do another one on this side just like we did on the opposite side, and get this manure spread out, I can get some more of my plants that are still potted into those raised beds. But I just think it gives it more of a finished look, and I really enjoy having these raised beds and see how they're going to do. Troy used slabs from the mill to make these raised beds, just to give it the walls on the outside. And then we filled it with, this one we particularly filled with forest dirt and some compost, and then planted our plants and then put the wood chips on top of it. But yeah, all of these slabs that we just had laying in a pile, he was able to use for our raised beds. And so if maybe you saw our previous video where we were installing these cattle panel trellises, you saw that this was, well, it was very muddy, and what we added here were some of those, if I can find them, right here, some of those slabs from the wood mill as well to lay across the mud, and then we just completely filled this area with wood chips. And we know that these are just going to break down really well, and over time just make some really good soil here in the garden as the bugs help to break these down.
So one process that we do to this, for this fence, of course, as Kelly mentioned, we just route a groove in the boards to create a little channel for the cattle panel to go in and be secured. It just gives it a finished look and obviously makes it easier to snap into place. So what I've got is, I've got my old, what is this sucker? Yeah, 1 3/4 horsepower Harbor Freight router that I really wouldn't hit a dog in the rear end with it, but I've had it in the workshop forever. I didn't want to bring up any of my good routers to have out here in the grass, working in the garden. So I thought, well, let's use this thing. If it burns up, it burns up. The thing that kills me about this, and it's kind of indicative of precision tools when it comes to this manufacturer, is things just come loose. So this fence that I have, the whole point of this is to have this fence ride along so I can center this dado, or this groove, in the center of the board. Well, if I don't tighten this up every single time, it comes loose. I'll be right in the middle of routing, and next thing I know, I'm going crazy because the fence has come loose. So it's a little bit of a drag. And this thing throws sparks like crazy, but still running. This thing's got to be 10 years old, so I guess that's something to say about it. Oh, lovely assistant! Guess you got to plug it in first. There it goes. It's moving. I guess it won't stop moving. You see that thing just pop loose? That is unbelievable. That is so aggravating. That's the worst this thing's ever been.
But if you had that apple, you touched this and then ate your apple, and this is horse poop. Touch the room. I'm touching your room. Say what? I said you touched the room, so yeah, while you're having the apple. And this is horse poop.
I was using my other hand to eat the apple.
The apple, I'm not having any flavor to it.
I'm so not touching it. I'm not eating apple and horse beef at the same time.
Somebody's laid some eggs in our mulch pile. Yeah, it's fox. Fox eggs. Shifty fox. Kind of big for a turtle. All right, so we got the other section of fence in. Got Kelly went crazy planting. She planted some flowers and all kinds of fun stuff there. Brought in some wood chips to mulch. Got everything remulched. She wants to do a video showing everybody what we have in the garden, what's growing and what's not. I'll leave that for her. But it's all coming together nicely. We even put some extra wood chips around the greenhouse. Keep the weeds down. Well, I know some of you may be thinking, now wait a minute, Troy, how is a fence that's only about 5 feet tall going to keep the deer out? Well, we've had good luck the past 2 years keeping the deer out with just this welded wire. And really what I think ties into it, and I'm no deer expert, but the more stuff you have inside your fence, like if I was fencing off a couple acres, yeah, they're going to jump over 8 feet, 10 feet. I've seen them jump even higher than that. But they don't like to jump into a box. So this, with all of this stuff in here, all this extraneous stuff that they can see, these trellises, the posts, when we add more trellises, trelli, I guess if that's a proper plural, as we add more of those, then it becomes even more of obstructions, so the deer won't jump over in it. It's kind of the way it's worked with our blueberry patch. I've had our blueberry patch for about 5 years, and it only has a 4-foot woven wire fence, and they haven't been getting in it, because it's like they have to jump into a box, because it's just a little small area that's maybe, I think it's 15 by 15. So they don't like jumping into stuff. So it's, we're hoping it's going to work. We'll see. We may have to just keep going higher and higher with flags and electric and all that kind of foolishness like everybody does. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.